till you begin to fade.
Get yourself together before it's too late. Oh my. As if we didn't have enough problems, everybody. Welcome to Divided We Stand. It's Saturday night, the 7th of May, and we're still alive. And it's 9/11.
I can't
Uh-oh.
see. I can't see Dave.
Not yet. Don't worry.
Ah, okay.
You will see him.
Ronnie, there's many,
We can
many
always
people
hear
out
him.
there. Millions of people out there feel the way that you do. Why do we have to look at Brian when you're here and I'm here? So it's common. It's just something we have to put
So you
up
can
with.
see we have a guest tonight. Dave doesn't count, of course. But as it goes, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. It's good to see everybody. Geez, if I can see everybody here, my eyes are going crazy. We have Karen, we have Sandy, we have Veg from Canada. All of our Canadian friends are there. Anthony's here. We've got oh Joey's here. We got Kim in the house. We got everybody. We got Karen, Kim. Okay, Max is here. Oh my, we've got just about everybody here. So it's great to see everybody. Truly. But as I said, if it wasn't bad enough, we've got a lot of things happening, and take your choice, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. Right now, we've got Ukraine that goes on. We've got climate change, global warming. That's nuts. We have Trumpers still believing that Trump won the election, and they're doing everything to make things difficult for Joe Biden. Just this last week, Rudy Giuliani decided now he wasn't going to show up, which we can talk about later, because I think that was all bullshit as it was. Anyway, tonight we have a special guest, my wonderful and beautiful wife, Ronnie Weinstein, and Dave is here. But guess what? Dave's audio is fixed, so keep your ears open because Dave speaks quickly when his audio works correctly. So you're going to notice a different tempo with Dave tonight. He has fixed all of the mistakes that he did. So anyway, congratulations, Dave. I'm glad that you fixed it all. Your show it just says live. Yeah. What happens is, Sandy, when we go live, I punch it in on my phone and I don't have any time because we go live and I just can't do it. That's why I don't put the name of the show. I'm not even sure what the name of the show is, but we'll figure one out by the time the show ends. All right. So we do want to change our scene to see our guests. And here we go. So welcome, Ron, even though you're right next door. And this guy is in the film noir mode. And that would be David Price from Arlington, Virginia. How's everybody doing? Terrible?
Are
You Louis Armstrong?
Couple things. Veg, listen, I saw your comment. Only 8 minutes late. That is good for Brian because remember, for the most part, Brian is on space time. And on space time, it's different. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate Brian. Basically, as you heard, ladies and gentlemen, he said he can't see at that point. And I know that what he did helps a lot. He took his glasses and put them on the top of his head, which is nowhere near his eyes. And what that means is that we have Brian late and not really with it. So it'll be another normal show. Hey, Ronnie, what's going on?
Hey, I'm back. What's going on? Need I say?
Yes,
right.
you need to say.
Need I say?
Well,
Okay.
I
Well, you
think-
start. You start.
Uh-oh, he may not end.
I meant no.
But we'll let him start. Why not? Why put all the
Yeah.
pressure on me?
No, it's very simple. All right. If you thought last week divided we stood was the state of the nation,
Hi, Kim.
it's
This is Joey, Ron. Sorry, Dave.
oh, that's okay. If like I said, if you thought last week divided we stand, the nation was that way, I'm going to go divided we will stay forever until we become two separate countries or do something. There's no hope, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a negative way. I really don't. We cannot live. I cannot live. We should not have to live in a country run by what we're witnessing. Of course, the things that we've always talked about, but this is abortion. I suppose you can really complicate it, right? I mean, I suppose you can, but I try to simplify complicated issues. And here's what it is: what a woman chooses to do with her body is her choice. I think she should consult maybe 3 different groups: a physician, but she still has the ultimate say. If indeed it is some kind of relationship she's in, whether it's a husband or a boyfriend or some kind of consensual thing, I think she should consult that. And sometimes it pays to consult your family because decisions. But when it comes down to it, the decision is a woman's. And of course, whether it happens or not, and I believe that it will, we are going to see the end of allowing women in at least, and I have the statistics later in the show, but
35.
somewhere between 23 and 26 states. Now, what I find that number interesting is we're right down the middle again. We're right down the middle.
I thought it was much higher than that, David.
No, not right now. They're not sure because that's the ones that already have something in play. All right. So it may end up being that, but as of tonight, that's the number, depending on what figures you're looking at. So I don't think it will go down. I mean, if what you're saying. So how do you have a country where half of your states think that something that the other half wants to do is murder? Not feasible to me. Brian and I, we don't talk much during the week because Brian's busy. And I don't have much to do, so I don't bother him. But the idea of it is we did have a couple minutes to chat today, and I said that I'm done. Not done with the show, not done with fighting. There's no compromise. There's no going back. So you begin to look for ways to either change the government, or you look for ways to change the laws, or, which is, we've been doing, but now even more urgency, or you look to form a bunch of countries. Right now, we're operating really seriously. It's almost like 50 small countries, but there seems to be unity between some. So let's look at the unified, forget the others, and let's see, is it a possibility? Is America too divided along many lines? And is it something that should be looked at seriously? And I think it should. How is there a way to make America 1, 2, 3, maybe not 50 countries, but at least depending on how you break it geographically? I don't see one nation, certainly not under God, because even the gods are different. So this is not, I think it's a huge issue. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's vital, it's everything, but this is really just the beginning. And I'll end with this comment in this section for me. These people are evil. These people who are not the people in power, but the people doing that are ignorant behind them. They don't understand that we are not a theocracy. And one comment that I think I would like to direct to them, it won't make any difference, is a lot of these laws that we're doing, there's no exceptions, right, Ron? I mean, not in the case of rape, not in the case of life being threatened. And okay, let's assume for a moment, which I couldn't do, but let's assume for a moment that someone does believe it's murder. Okay, just assume for a moment. Now, if somebody breaks into my house tonight and I kill them, I could probably claim self-defense, but that's murder, right? If I willy-nilly go out and just start gunning everybody down, that's a different kind of murder. Stand your ground in Florida. So what I find fascinating is the mindset of these conservatives that say, in this case, all abortion is murder, no exceptions. But in the case of murder, there are exceptions. So it makes no sense. Get rid of them. Let's form another country. I don't know if I want to come up to Canada. I don't want to leave. I'd rather form something here.
I don't think it's possible because we have ports, we have, warm, we have cold, we have this, we have that. You'll see the same things start happening here that you're seeing with Russia and Ukraine and all that's going on there. There is no way that this country can exist separately, in my opinion, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And all I envision is truly a civil war, because there'll be fights about other things. When we start separate, I mean, I'm all for it. I posted that a while ago. We are not, never have been, will never be the United States of America. I had people argue that it's a work in progress. But like you said, on issues like this, there is no compromise. There is no convincing. But I will tell you, I had a very encouraging piece of interesting post on Facebook today from someone who is very, very religious. And I was very shocked to see, and I will read it, it's very short. He's so religious to the point that he's almost a preacher. And he said, the fact that in 2022 we still have questions over what a woman has the right to do with her body is discouraging. It's not a matter of faith. It's not a matter of morals. It's a matter of human rights. No entity, government, or church has the responsibility or the right to dictate what a woman should choose. It is indeed tyranny. So, unbeknownst to me, there are religious people that do feel that. I mean, honestly, I maybe knew one person who was religious that felt that way. So I found that to be slightly encouraging, but it didn't really change my view on, can we make this work? I don't think we can. Plus the fact, Dave, you said, there are maybe some exceptions like rape and incest, but the biggest exception with Republicans is if it happens to my daughter. Okay.
Yeah, well, of course, right. That's always been.
Okay.
Right.
And so
what happens to them?
Yes, we're dealing with hypocrisy much more than what they truly believe. And I think we all know that, but I think that's the dangerous part of what's going on right now. So
can I ask one question, Ron? I don't want you to say the person's name. That's not what's important. What state? What state was the person who received that email? It was, from.
Well, right now,
Facebook
he's in the Midwest. He's in the Midwest, but he's from New Jersey.
No, what I meant was, and that's good. That's really helpful if he's in a state who is purple or red. So is it because that means there are every person there who holds that belief can help. If you're in New Jersey, if you're in California, I mean, it's great to hold that view, but nobody's going to change there, and it's dominant. So if he is indeed, I'm not taking anything away from what he said. I think it's great. It's just what we say has more weight if it needs something in a state to vote. You know what I mean? That's all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are many of people like him out there, but it just was it was absolutely shocking to me. So I felt good about that. And I haven't felt good about anything, quite frankly, in a very long time. So any little piece of, encouragement, I'll take it. But I am not optimistic. I am not. Although I have to say, I have my moments where I feel like it's going to be okay. I don't know whether that's unrealistic or what, but you sit there and you look at Joe Biden at a correspondence dinner, and he's calm and cool as a cucumber, and the whole world is crashing around him. It was just surreal watching that to me. It really was. It really, really was. And I thought Trevor Noah did an unbelievable job. I really did. Did you happen to see that?
Well, as I mostly say, I don't watch anything in depth. I watch the clips. And yes, I would agree with both the things you said. My problem goes deeper with that. I've always felt that the White House Press Association should not have that get together, even as a
It was
reporter.
a very creepy feeling this time. I could barely,
Well,
I was really cringing from it.
it always was, and this is just my belief. Journalists can do whatever they want, and but I just always felt that you certainly don't put a show on public of how you get along with people. The press is supposed to be independent. The press is supposed to be above that, and the focus was on the president, as it should be, but a lot of the focus was also on Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson and their relationship with Kanye. To me, so I always have felt that, nothing new. I've always felt that particular soiree, if you will, fancy soiree, yes, was something that I don't think is good for the appearance of journalism. If you want to be objective, I don't think you should do that. And of course, here in DC, the idea of it is that this is the closest thing it gets to Hollywood. And I think journalism and politics should never be Hollywood. Now, that having been said, I'm certainly in a minority of reporters, I would say, that feel that way. But that's it. Now, having said that, back to you. Looking at that, yes, Joe Biden, for the pressure he's under. My problem is, I don't know if there's anything Joe Biden can do.
Right.
I mean, he hasn't done anything, and I'm not saying he hasn't done anything bad, right? No, but in this case, I'm still a little concerned that in the back of his mind, he's still thinking about an America that is no longer here, where compromise is possible. I do not see it. I don't even see it in his own party. You've got Manchin, who is a D claiming. Is an R claiming to be a D. You've got Sinema, who I don't know what she is. I don't think she knows what she is. It's too close. Everybody's got to be on board. The idea was, they were moving at a point, and we'll talk later tonight, I hope before you leave, Ronnie, on the idea of what can be done about the court, what's realistic, not what could be done, but what should be done. Let me rephrase that. But they talked about it. Biden did the normal thing that a governing person or governing body do. We'll report a commission, appoint a commission. Commission comes back and basically say, well, here are some things you might, there's no action. And I think that's what frustrates me. This was coming. It was clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of, not blame to go around, but a lot of things happened. Obama did not fight strong and hard enough, I do not think, when his appointment was taken away. Ruth Bader Ginsburg deserves to do exactly what she did. But however, had she retired.
Totally agree.
Now, that doesn't mean she should have done it. I don't know Justice, the deceased justice. I know that everybody who knew her seemed to think she was a great person. I thought her rulings were great. But, and I think there is probably some truth to the report that she wanted her successor to be nominated by the first woman president. And that didn't happen. So there's been a lot of things that had to fall in place for the enemy, and they did. But maybe I also think we haven't, not we, individuals, but collectively, I don't think Schumer, Pelosi, the executive branch have fought enough or hard enough. It was more like maybe they thought it would pass. But again, we're here now, so it's what do we do now?
So I was reading this site, one of the few liberal sites from Russia, which is not taking place in Russia right now. They are in Europe, and I haven't left this topic. I'm actually staying
Right.
on it. And I was looking at some of the reasons why Russians tell themselves that they're behind Putin and this war was necessary. And in a lot of cases, it's propaganda. Some people think that it's conspiracy. But in all cases, it seems as though deep down they know the truth. And I'm seeing these similarities because I do study the Russian language, and I am very much, steeped in American politics. I see these same notes coming up, so to speak, if I can speak metaphorically. And I get more and more tired of human beings to the point where, I don't want to be, with you folks, it's great. I don't want to be with them, or I do want to be with them, but not until I don't want to be with them. And it's getting harder and harder because it seems like it's the same person. If you could just take an average idiot Republican from this country and take one from Russia, it seems to be the same damn thing. And in both cases, the power structure makes it easier for them. And what I'm saying is, at this point in my life, and I think my wife agrees with me, I don't see a way out to this. I keep seeing friends and relatives die in the course of the struggle. I've made analogies to World War II for those people who were dying in 1942, not knowing whether we were going to defeat the Germans or not. And you go out unfulfilled. You feel as though, and I don't like using this word, your soul has just been torn apart. And I don't see any way out. And this is when I watched Handmaid's Tale. I have the trailer here, by the way. But it's a hard show to watch. And Ronnie first got me to watch Handmaid's Tale. And, they say, art imitates life. And I'm not so sure it's turned the other way around. Is there any hope for us? I mean, you essentially said this, I believe, Dave, and Ron, you seem, you're on the verge of saying there is no hope. Am I just that person in 1942 who dies and doesn't get to see the American army and the Russian army, defeat Hitler?
Well, I think we're all going to die and not see something that we want to see.
Especially you, Ronnie, being so close to Brian, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think The Handmaid's Tale is far off at all. As a matter of fact, The Handmaid's Tale lacked one thing that real life does have, and that is the racism. They weren't really against people of color. It was an equal opportunity.
If they were like Clarence Thomas, I suppose.
No, maybe.
Yeah.
But
because wasn't that lead character the guy who went to Canada, Ron, was the husband? Mm-hmm. They were after him, but they were after him for political reasons. And this is the issue now. It's not religion, even though religion has a lot to do with the Roe v Wade. This is a political world right now. This is not a religious world. This is a political world.
Right. It has nothing to do with religion because, by the way, when Roe versus Wade was passed, it was through a Republican Supreme Court and a Republican administration. So they didn't use religion back then. Now, suddenly, not suddenly, over the last 50 years, that became a tool rather than a thing that existed back then. And it was the evangelical community that supported the Republicans, and then they paid more attention to the evangelical community, and it became a religious topic. It's insane. And the argument that someone had with my friend on Facebook about his statement was basically saying that we were going to go to hell if we didn't agree with him. Well, I guess I'm going to hell then. I'll see you there, But it's not a religious. It's a medical issue and a political issue. And that's it. And emotional. And they're just using it. And we all know that. We all know that.
Right.
And the Handmaid's Tale was more about a sexist world, and this is more.
Which may be coming our way.
Yeah,
More so.
It's their discomfort with people that aren't familiar to them, people of color, women, gay people, immigrants from other countries, which fall into the people of color category. Having a life, having control over their lives, having control over their decisions, and they don't like it. White men don't like it. And I don't include the two of you. I am not a man hater. I've never been against men. There's too many good ones. But they're not in the Republican Party. And that's for sure. And apparently they can make nude videos with their friends and still get reelected. So go for it, guys.
Well, I would say, Ronnie, that you've hit something. There are many changes. We've talked about them on the show. I'm going to introduce one tonight that we've talked a little bit about, but since you just said it so strongly about the nude videos. Once upon a time, there was a sense of shame. A politician could feel shame, and shame was a weapon that could be used, right? Post Donald Trump, I don't see that as a weapon anymore. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you are a Republican, it seems you'll vote for the Republican no matter what. There's at least 9 candidates who are running for congressional seats on the Republican side in primaries who have very serious moral failings or even criminal failings. There was a place, now this was for a local, I can't remember where, I should know it, but it was obviously, it was a red state. It was just a local race, not even a state race. He won from jail. He's in jail serving, and he won. The separate wives, yes, very true, Veg. What I want to do, Ronnie, and for you and anyone else, I think sometimes, and I know I'm guilty of this, we don't back up what we say sometimes with facts. So I want to take some time here just for a moment, if you'll bear with me. And I've got a list in front of me, and we'll go state by state. It's very simple, where they stand tonight on abortion. And I think that paints a whole picture, because we got to look at, because we're not one country. Okay, so we look state by state. Here we go. In Alabama, abortion is banned. In Alaska, it is protected. In American Samoa, it is banned. In Arizona, it is banned. In Arkansas, it is banned. Or leading to it under this. California protected, Colorado protected, Connecticut protected, Delaware protected, District of Columbia protected, Florida restricted, Georgia banned, Guam banned, Hawaii protected, Idaho banned, Illinois protected, Indiana restricted, Iowa protected, Kansas restricted, Kentucky banned, Louisiana banned, Maine protected, Maryland protected, Massachusetts protected, Michigan banned, Minnesota protected, Mississippi banned, Missouri banned, Montana protected, Nebraska restricted, Nevada protected, New Hampshire not protected, New Jersey protected, New Mexico not protected, New York protected, North Carolina banned, North Dakota banned, Northern Mariana Islands banned, Ohio banned, Oklahoma banned, Oregon protected, Pennsylvania restricted, Puerto Rico restricted, Rhode Island protected, and South Carolina banned, South Dakota banned, Tennessee banned, Texas banned, U.S. Virgin Islands not protected, Utah banned, Vermont protected, Virginia restricted, Washington State protected, West Virginia restricted, Wisconsin restricted, and Wyoming banned. Now, what we were saying earlier, that's tonight's list. But you have to look at the only states that are solid, Ronnie, right, are those where it's protected. If it's restricted, they've already moved to that side.
Right.
So the numbers, and now later.
Well, by the way, it's not the whole state. It's obviously the state the
well,
people who are in charge.
Well, there you are. I mean, I live in a state now which was, had a Democratic governor. Now we have a Republican governor. Um, and what I'm saying is, I mean, but in Virginia, if he passes something, it's my law. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. So yeah, it's not everybody, and that's the problem. If we could take, that's what I would like to see, but there's no practical way unless somebody else can see it and I can't. Is to take all the people who want to be, uh, and it pretty much follows lines, liberal and conservative. There's very few times I do know a few liberals who do draw a line and they feel that abortion is wrong, and I mean, but it's very few, and they'd have to pick and choose a side. Is that the issue that says I must go with the others on this? But just like, I mean, it's because it's not, Ronnie. You're right. It's not everybody in Alabama. I know two people who can't vote, aren't old enough to vote, and two people who are certainly not in line with the Republican thinking in Alabama, and there are many, many more. The thing that I don't get, the problem is we can't make changes without the other side joining us. So the idea of changing the Constitution, the idea of changing the Supreme Court, you have to have enough votes. And it's just too close. You can't get those votes. And so it means kind of, unless somebody can figure out some way to do this, you're stuck with that. And those numbers, I mean, the thing to me is that abortion is in jeopardy. People say, well, wait a minute, it's a state decision. Shouldn't it be a state decision? Yeah, but already you've got states saying that they will prosecute people who leave the state to get an abortion from another state. Do you really think a state who has it protected, like Connecticut, they're passing a law now that says that the other states can't do it? This is going to be such a beyond divisive issue.
So ugly.
No, but and it's beyond divisive. This may be now. I don't. I'm always want to say, oh, don't
does that
project.
Translate in bringing the people out to vote, though? I would think
Right.
females, yes.
I'm not so sure that matters, Brian. You're not going to find enough people in Idaho, North Dakota, those states.
Right. You won't find them there.
You're not going to find. So what happens is, if you're going to give Idaho, which you do, the same power in the Senate as California, it's a virtually meaningless government. What people don't get, or what I don't think they understand well, is that the United States, Ronnie, you said it, many of us have said it, it's never been united.
Are we balkanized? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is this: when we did that Constitution, it had to be the way it was. We were completely. I don't know if we were worse than we are now, but you had slave and non-slave states, and there was no, the slave states didn't want to give up the slaves. The non-slave states didn't necessarily want to have forced slaves there, and so they were able to work out these compromises, right? But they were temporary compromises, and people have to understand that was 13 colonies coming together to create a country on the East Coast, right? With the majority of people being white, with the majority of people having some religious affiliation, and even then, those who were on the outside, whether they were Catholics or Jews, didn't have the same power, but. We were always able, people who were disgruntled were always able to move to the West, right? There's no more movement.
Right. There's no place to go.
We're locked in. California was settled by really two kinds of people.
And the oceans don't protect us anymore.
No, well, and from the out, that's true.
Because and don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we have not forgotten that we are essentially approaching a proxy war with Russia and all ramifications of Putin. We have not forgotten any of that. It's just that this is not what we're discussing tonight, right now.
Well, we will be later. But the thing is, too, as I said, I don't like to project. I don't like to predict. I think there's too much of that going on. But this actually screams for it. Do you really think that the Supreme Court will stop?
Good, Ken. Good idea. Sorry, I just had a comment.
We always jump in on these. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Feel free.
Go.
No, Kim, go ahead, Ron. Say what you said.
No, good idea. I think it needs to start turning around in the other direction.
Yeah, let the male have the obligation.
Said, women on strike in every possible way. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Here's an interesting thing, Ron. You say that. There's an ancient Greek play that's very powerful that should be taught in every school, but of course now under the new Republican regime it won't. It's a play called Lysistrata. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the basic storyline is this: the women are tired of war, right? Their men just keep fighting war and keep fighting war, and so they just withhold sex. And and that was very effective. Now, I'm not suggesting, but I mean, what I'm saying is, a small group, women are far more powerful than white men in office think they are. My only concern is about that power is
until they're not.
Well, what I mean is, Brian, what do you do with that power? Do you really think that any type of protest is going to change any of those Supreme Court justices' minds? No, the only way to stop them.
Well, they're already worried, at least, with having that ridiculous cage around them.
I'm gonna say something, and we'll see later if I'm proven right. I think they want the cage, not to protect them necessarily. I mean, they don't want to. That shows that the animals.
Yeah, that we're the animals, right? Not the
Right.
January 6th people, but
Right.
we are the
Well,
animals.
did you see? I forget which. It wasn't one of the main commentators, but I saw it. Or I read it in Fox. He said, and I quote, or as closely as I can remember it, is this. Now, he wasn't saying about the decision. He was talking about the leak, and we need to talk later about the leak and what's going on there. This commentator on Fox, so it goes out to all the Fox people, said this leak is far more serious
Right.
than a bunch of old Trump supporters taking selfies
Right.
in the Senate chamber.
Right.
Now, where the hell? Well, okay, we laugh, we say stupid, but people believe that.
Right,
So
and
what-
this is where it gets into that Russian thing, is this people
Right.
actually...
And now you have to give the enemy credit before you can defeat them. No, you don't give them credit. You realize their battle. They have been very patient. 50 years they've been working to this moment, right? There's a belief with some attending documentation that Amy Coney, ABC there, Amy Coney Barrett, was groomed. When I say groomed, they want to use that word. I'll use groomed, okay? And I'm using it correctly.
Right, T-Bone.
When they saw the idea of her, where she stood on positions, she comes from her church is absolutely insane.
She is a handmaid.
Oh yeah, well, she believes in it. It's but what I'm saying is she has been, they picked her when she was in Notre Dame. Now, why do they pick somebody from Notre Dame? That's another thing. They don't, it's not that they say they do. They don't hate Yale and Harvard and all that. Not in their level. They get people to hate them. But that's a good thing. Oh, it's Notre Dame. That's a, good old normal school. Well, what happens is I see this as bullies do not stop. They don't stop until they're stopped. They just don't. And they continue on. I would not be a bit surprised if three things happen. One is, the first is already in place. Governor Abbott, I don't know, Brian and Ronnie, if you saw that. Governor Abbott has already said he's taking another case to court, which he's going to use the same appeal. And the appeal, it's a fancy word. If you break down, I call him now Aliupos, but Alioto's thing, he says this is an unenumerated right. Well, basically, how the hell are they going to enumerate rights and things when they weren't aware of them in 1787? And many times the court has said, well, we'll come, we see that now. Well, this court will not. So here's what Governor Abbott is going to do. He's going to come after compulsory, I'm stuttering tonight, public education. Now, here's his rationale, and he'll have support with it. He says that it is wrong for Texas to have to pay for students who are not citizens. What if the court finds that's true? Okay, then we've got another crisis on our hands. Education is a weapon that the right uses against those of us who can think.
Right, the elitists. Brian, I'm sorry, Dave, but I think this would be a good time to play the Mike Huckabee video.
Sure, let's let it run.
Because this is what you're talking about in
Right.
this is where they're going with it.
Right, and I think that's fair tonight to say this is not the end. This is a victory that they will just now drive much, much harder on other areas and attack.
All right, give me a second here.
Well, T-Bone said exactly what I was thinking, so I don't really have to go into it. But if there is a bigger issue than the abortion issue, it's that the people who are deciding on it are criminals themselves, basically. I mean,
well, you certainly have Clarence Thomas, who is suspect at least twice.
Right.
Both with
you have a sexual, alleged sexual predator who can't remember.
And Kavanaugh, I know you're innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
So I suppose that's true. But there is no doubt in my mind, as someone who spent 34 years involved in education, that as a young man, given his background, he did what he was accused of. No question.
Well, let's just real quick. This is going to be very short, folks. Putting on loop back, so there's going to be a little bit of.
This is how scary. This is how scary it is.
All right.
Push it back.
Hi, this is Mike Huckabee. Isn't it amazing how so much that President Trump said still rings true? But schools and the media don't want our kids to hear anything positive. And that's why
can't hear it.
Can't hear it at all?
President Trump.
Very choppy.
It's garbled. It's choppy on my end.
All right, let me just click this. Hold on.
Teach your kids all about.
That's better.
Well, that's
bigger.
Well, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to see if I can really ratchet up the volume if I can. I'll do my best. It's very short. We'll just see what happens.
Hi, this is Mike Huckabee. Isn't it amazing how so much that President Trump said still rings true? But schools and the media don't want our kids to hear anything positive. And that's why my team created the Kids Guide to President Trump. It'll teach your kids all about President Trump's accomplishments and his vision for America. And I want you to have it free. Hi, this is Mike Huckabee.
Hey,
Isn't it amazing how so much President Trump said?
I think we get the point. I think we get the point.
Right. I mean, it's really abuse of children. Right there.
I could have saved Mr. Huckabee some money. I assume you got that printed. Do you see what I'm holding up in front of me?
Let me get a clue.
Why do we have an echo again?
Oh, sorry, that was my loop back. I have to turn it off because we couldn't listen to that video unless I put it on loop back. Hold on.
Okay. I mean, the fact that he is still doing this. What is David holding up?
I'm gonna get there in a second here.
Okay.
I'm having problems with this.
Actually, Ronnie, it's a petition to get somebody who knows what they're doing in charge of this show. And removing Brian.
This is great. I'm glad I'm not the one doing it, though. Seriously.
I've had those. We've all had on Brian's end. We've all had those problems.
Something like this.
There we go.
Hold on.
Okay. What I'm holding here, for any conservatives watching this show, this is a blank piece of paper. Now, if I heard Mr. Huckabee correctly, he said Donald Trump got a lot of things right, and this book is going to help kids get a lot of things right. This is what Donald Trump got right. It's right here. So anything that you put on this paper now saying that Mr. Trump got it right is a lie. Of course, that's not going to stop them from doing it. So the idea of it is, Mr. Huckabee, if you were here, I would tell you that I do not like you. You're not. I would tell you that I don't think you're a very good father because I didn't like Sarah. And it's nothing personal. She's just a liar. And so are you. And there we are. T-Bone, you know what? The power of paper. I'm going to have to say this time, though, I'm not so sure. What is it? The pen is more powerful than the sword.
Mightier.
Well, in Russia, if you even show a blank piece of paper, your ass is
Well,
going to prison.
you know what, Brian? And I'm glad you said that, because I'm a little tired of that. And what I mean, not what you're saying. I'm just saying
Right.
we hide behind that. How you said it. How are we different than Russia right now? I understand. They protest, they die, right?
Right.
We protest, we don't get anywhere. Now we don't die. Maybe it's better
Yet.
to put well, I'm just saying, but maybe it's better to put your life on the line and say. I mean, I think what my problem is with America, or one of my problems right now, is we have these wonderful things that sound good, right? Democracy, the people rule. Now, again, depending on what source you look at, somewhere between 60 and 70% of Americans agree that abortion should be offered. 5 members of a Supreme Court, 2 of which we have, or if you want to back out, I accuse of being unfit to sit on the Supreme Court, have made a decision that says that 60 or 70% of the American people are wrong. They have the right to do that the way the court is now constructed.
Right.
But
Which
there are
is
some
pretty
things that could change that construction. But of course, we're powerless to do that, because you've got to get those who want to keep the court the same way on board to at least attempt to change it. Does that mean that I'm advocating an insurrection? I'm not there yet, but certainly what I am advocating, Ronnie, is somewhat of what we have to start withholding certain things. Women have to just, whatever they have to do, and those of us who support them for this issue, but the others, education, guns, it's just nothing's getting done because we're too damn divided. So
What are you proposing that women withhold?
I don't know. I'm not a woman. I'm not gonna say that. I mean, I don't know. I said about Liz Estrada. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Is there something that? Okay. I don't even. This is ridiculous. You're not going to get anywhere because your husband agrees with you, and I mean that on this issue, right? So, on that kind of thing, I'm thinking like, don't these people have mothers? But of course, that's not going. They're not going to do it either because their mothers think like they do, right? And you can't shame them. You can't say to them, look, logic dictates that this is, as you said, is a medical, it really is. When it comes down to it, it's really a medical issue. You can't say to them, if you were serious about pro-life, if you were serious about that, you would make birth control available. You would
make the gun control. They would be
in fact, you wouldn't even have a child, because the minute you decide that you want to have some conception, you are automatically giving, and my wife knows what I'm talking about here from a conversation I had with my mother. You're giving life, but you're giving death when you decide to have a child. You don't know.
But everything done. I mean, that's right. Just what happens.
But I'm getting to the point. But they come about it from a religious view that this is, quote unquote, it's not even that it's about life and death. It's about what God believes, even though it's not in the Bible.
And the problem is going to be and now I'm speaking of the 5 members of the Supreme Court, are never going to say that they are coming at it from their religious perspective. But they can't.
Well, they are.
But they are, or at least they're politically backing those who come about
they
that
are.
point.
It's in there. It's in their churches, the ones that they attend. But the idea of it is because they realize that is anathema to the United States of America. The forefathers put up a wall between church and state, and that wall was supposed to stand forever, and it hasn't always. But it's been pretty good up until the past 30 years, and now we're seeing eroded. And the other thing that I find interesting, they're saying, and you hear them, they're saying, oh, it's just not a national issue. We don't have the power to do this, so we're going to remand it to the states. That worked real well in the Civil War, didn't it?
Right.
That's exactly what happened. The states wanted power. Now, if we're going to be in the modern age, you can't have states having power. I'm sorry, on things that are national. What's national? Abortions, gun control.
And even
the
John
thing-
Roberts understood that.
well, I'm not a defender of John
Right.
Roberts.
Neither am I, but he understood
no,
that.
but I'm saying what John Roberts is, he knows that when this goes down, they're not going to remember Kavanaugh and Thomas and
Right. They're going to remember him.
It's the John Roberts court. So,
And he's going to get what he deserves.
He does have a vested interest. Well, what it's showing is that he has absolutely no power.
Right.
If
he can't convince any one of those conservatives to, break a bit.
Now, what would be interesting, and I don't know the law, please somebody research, I'm going to try this week. Perjury is lying under oath. Is that correct?
Sounds good to me.
Simplest definition. I've heard all 5 of those justices in clips say that Roe v. Wade was settled law.
Right.
Now, if it was settled law and
Good
now
point.
you're unsettling it, then you lied.
But no, Dave, no, because
What?
if it's a law, it doesn't necessarily mean it's constitutional. So it's not in the Constitution.
I understand that. But the term, see, it's like the term, Ronnie, bear arms. There is anywhere in recorded history, any idea where bear arms has anything other than to do with military. But they've changed that definition. Settled law under terminology is it's settled, it's done, let's move on. So when they said it was settled law, what they were saying. So what they were doing is lying. Now, we've got, he loves you more, but I think it's Brian's second female love, Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who basically, and Susan, if you were here, I would tell you this also. I'm sure you're a very nice lady somewhere, but not in the Senate, because one of two things, you're either too gullible if you believe them to be a senator, or you, ma'am, are a liar. And neither one is good to be a senator. And she actually had the nerve to come out and say initially, until somebody told you better walk that back. Well, that's not what they said. Duh.
Yeah.
Well,
they've been lying since Clarence Thomas about this subject.
Well, as we said, this is something, what's the saying? I hate cliches sometimes, but they're true. Give the devil his due. They've been plotting this and patient for 50 years. And we, many of us, and I'm going to throw myself in that category right there. I honestly thought naively and wrongfully that when we elected Barack Obama, it was a tremendous move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying not electing him would have been better, but what I'm saying is I gave more credence to American voters. And basically what I think happened was the election of Barack Obama, which is not necessarily a bad thing, brought out the racism overtly.
Of course.
That led to Donald Trump. Now, you guys live, as we say every show, you live in the neighborhood where my wife lived for 59 years or whatever. Yeah, 59 years, I guess. And I lived there for 30 of those, or more than that, 35. So, and Bridgeton is, I thought Bridgeton was not representative of America. Boy, was I wrong in terms of, the white population in that area for the most part is just as southern as Tennessee, Mississippi, or anywhere else. But I thought, okay, well, that's because they came from West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They were brought up to work in the glass factory. But I didn't understand how deep these feelings went in terms of Indiana, in terms of your former, where you went to school, Brian, Ohio.
Wow, right. Unbelievable.
And what you have...
Well, somewhat believable.
And it kind of runs parallel lines. Okay, so you have, it has nothing to do with those liberal states being on the coast. That has nothing to do with it, I don't think, other than perhaps, you mentioned earlier, Ronnie, ports. But I mean, maybe in the beginning, they were more, I don't know, maybe they got more aware of outsiders or whatever, but today it isn't. But what they do have is large population centers, higher education than these other people, more diversity. If you, Asia, a lot of people come across and settle in California. Here we have, we had a lot of Cubans down in Florida. Of course, they're a whole different story. But the idea is, the real idea is right now, I don't think they're going to stop. And I'm going to make a prediction tonight. And remember, my predictions are certainly, and my track record is not very good after Donald Trump. But I feel relatively confident in this. That if let's use Alabama. Because now you can be charged with a crime, of course, if you abort. So they go to Connecticut where it's protected. They come back, they charge. I would see Alabama taking that case to the Supreme Court, right? And the Supreme Court could very well rule that abortion should not be allowed in the United States because it creates too many problems. Think about that. Who was it said? In fact, it was exactly the judge, Alioto. If you look at his thing, says that since the abortion issue has gone in, it's divided the United States. And if you take him at his word, what he's saying then is we should only have one law. And since he favors not having abortions, I mean, I can see that. I mean, I think again, this idea of being comfortable with going back to the states, I don't see it being comfortable. Like I said, you've got Abbott. Here, who else is at risk? Here's another, just a 4 or 5 quick, unenumerated rights, which is in the same legal category as abortion. Gay marriage.
Right.
That's not enumerated.
Interracial marriage.
Interracial marriage, which of course there's an irony there, with Judge Thomas being black, or at least black in skin color, and Ginny, who I get the impression pretty much runs the roost there. I don't think Clarence is the boss at home, and not in the sense that any man should be a boss, but I'm just saying, Ginny, I think it's a real power, and so you would think out of some sense of his own marriage, but no, he's going head full tilt boogie in terms of that. I kind of hoped, I knew it wouldn't, and I think actually the court ruled correctly in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene that she should not be removed from.
Yeah, well, that was not the final. That was not the final decision.
No, but here's
I have to go to the state legislature.
Here's why I think it's correct. I've not heard. Well, I don't even know. Is he on vacation? What's that guy who heads the Justice Department? I forget. Merrick something. I haven't heard anything from him for a while.
Yeah, he's. Well, no, and it's funny. What did he came out like crazy this week when he was talking about.
This week? He came out this week?
Yeah, about Russia.
Oh.
He came out about Russia with the oligarchs. We're going to go after them.
Well,
what about here?
That was about 6 weeks ago. That would have been apropos. I'm still waiting for him to say, as the leading law enforcement official in the United States of America, what transpired on January 6th was a criminal attempt to overthrow the United States government. And then at that moment, then that court's going to have a hard time letting Miss Greene go, right? But right now, it's Gates. Now, Veg puts up Marco Rubio. Look, you're absolutely right. What's going to happen, guys, too? And you know this, and so we're just kind of talking about it.
It's going to keep chasing it with whatever they can.
There's no bottom to what they will do.
Exactly.
There's no bottom. There's none. There's none. And we don't have a lot of effective weapons that I know of to use against them. I have to be honest. Well, no, I don't have to be honest. I can be dishonest if I want to be. If it came down to killing 10, 15, 20, or 30, or 40, or 60, or 80, or 112, and being able to leave the country, I probably would leave the country. All right? Don't want to leave the country. Don't want to kill either. I'm trying to find an avenue between those two options. And because of my limited ability to understand all the nuances of government, I don't. I think Joe Biden needs to be forceful. I know he's trying, but apparently, again, for whatever reason, People just see him as an enfeebled leader. That's all. And I think the Democratic Party should tonight say we need all hands on deck. Dianne Feinstein has done a marvelous job. But Dianne came to my office today and said she needs to retire.
Thank you for sharing that, Kim.
Well, okay,
Sad.
since Kim did, Kim, not trying to play, but just pointing this. I've said this before, but maybe, I'll say it again. This is a good point to say it. When my wife Judy and I, 49 years ago, when we became pregnant, and I don't mean that to be funny or sound funny, I've never seen a woman yet who really does it without a man being involved or some kind of sperm. And we were college kids. I was still, I was a junior. Judy was had graduated. She graduated a semester early. And we didn't know what to do. And so when I say she decided, I allowed, and I didn't allow, I just said, okay, even back then I was smart enough to know that it was just, I said, what do you think is best? And she said, I don't see any other option other than an abortion. At that point we hadn't been, we wasn't like we'd been in a 17-year relationship or even a 17-month relationship. We had a whole future ahead of us. I think she knew that I had a drug and alcohol problem at that point. I was certainly not fatherly material in anyone's mind. And we went ahead and scheduled the abortion. And we would have gone through with it. However, what happened was one morning, Judy threw up. And her mother said, I guess her mother was pretty smart. She said, Jude, are you pregnant? And she said, yes. And her mother said, what do you plan to do? And she said, well, David and I have scheduled an abortion. And her mother looked at her, and her mother was one of the most loving people ever. So it wasn't a Christian thing. It wasn't anything. She just said, and I don't think that's what we do. I think we're going to sit down and talk about it. And we didn't have the abortion. Now, does that mean I'm against abortion? No. At that point, that was the smartest thing to do. And it was, I'm glad we didn't do it, but that's one instance, just one. But I'm very glad that that was available. And to take that away now, to take that option away, especially Brian, and I'm not saying you and I are special, but we've taught in school. We know what that is like. I'm not accusing anyone tonight, but I guarantee you, Cumberland Regional, which is the fancy school, to Bridgeton High School, the abortion rate there is, I'm going to say 8-1, maybe 9-1, because that's, richer district. They get them, they have them. I know that, I know a lot of people who get them. But do you think they're going to come out and say it? No, they're just like the politicians. You know what I mean? They're just going to.
The bottom line is, if this is a political issue being masked by, Republicans. They know this is political. It's just like Trump. Trump couldn't give a shit about anything the Republicans do. He just wants to use the party to effectively have control. So, Ron, you've said this before. It's about control.
Totally.
It's about control.
They don't have the control. And the crazy thing, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No,
go Ron.
No, the crazy thing is that they are the minority and they are ruling. And who ever heard of such a stupid thing, minority rules? I mean, right. It's insane.
Well,
Ronnie, I'm having a hard time with that.
That's what T-Bone was talking about. Here you have 30% trying to rule the 70%.
Ronnie, you're absolutely right. So what does that say? That says if that can happen, our documents are wrong. That's what it says. There's no question about that. Now, there are some, and we can play those semantical games, and I've played them. We're not a democracy. We're not. We're a republic, and that's something different. And then go back to these founding fathers. What they wanted, why do you think they set it up with the Senate having more power in the House? Because they wanted that power. Now, what they didn't see, or at least what history books indicate they did not see, is they did not see the advent of political parties as quickly as it happened. So George Washington would have won by acclamation, right? I mean, he was a national hero. He won. As soon as he got in, there started to be bickering, and you started having sides with Hamilton and Adams and Washington on one side, and Jefferson and Madison and some of the others on the other side. And then it became pretty ugly. Now, here's a rule. We changed this rule, and people should know this. I mean, I just think a lot of people, not you guys, obviously, and not anybody really listens to the show, they just think it's always been that way. Do you realize in the early elections, the vice president was the person who got the second most votes in the
Right,
presidential?
right, right.
And so you had Jefferson and Adams, who were mortal enemies politically there. So that didn't work. So we changed that. We've changed a number of things. Now, one of the things that the founding fathers put in was the idea of having a constitutional convention. Well, now the problem is if we have 25 states, you're not going to have enough states to support any change in either way. And that's where I think that's why tonight, I keep saying I don't see an answer, but look at the Senate. No control, right? Neither side has a control of the Senate. So what happens? The minority blocks because you can't get Sinema and you can't get Manchin. And if they come on board, it's 50-50 and you get the vice president to cast the deciding vote. For whatever reason, and they may be very good, I don't see them at this point.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt because this will disappear. This is exactly what's happening in Russia right now. You see so many of the intelligent academic Russians are now leaving Russia and going to Georgia or anywhere they can go, Dubai. And this may eventually happen. Like what will Dave Price do? What will Brian Watson do?
Well, here we
what
go.
Will Romney do?
Veg, this somewhat answers your question in a little bit of a way. And I hope that people recall, I don't mean memorize, but I read the list of the 50 states, remember, which I did. Now I'm going to do something else. I pulled this tonight because I think the two really have a telling story. I want to do a little bit more with statistics tonight. This is the Educated States Index. And what it does, it looks at a number of categories and it ranks. So I'm going to go from number 1 all the way down. You ready? And see if you see a pattern developing. Number 1 is Massachusetts. Number 2 is Connecticut. Number 3 is Maryland. Number 4 is New Jersey. Number 5 is Virginia. Number 6 is Vermont. Number 7 is New York. Number 8 is New Hampshire. Number 9 is Minnesota. Number 10 is Rhode Island. Number 11 is Illinois. Number 12 is Washington State. Number 13 is Pennsylvania. Number 14 is Colorado. Number 15 is California. Number 16 is Delaware. Number 17 is Maine. Number 18 is Wisconsin. Number 19 is Iowa. So the first 18 are either purple or blue, correct?
Correct.
So we have a reverse of the side of abortion. So we'll just finish this list. 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay. 20 is Nebraska. 21 is Oregon. 22 is Missouri. 23, Utah. 24, Kansas. 25, Michigan. 26, Hawaii, still a liberal state. 27th, Kentucky. 28th, Montana. 29th, Ohio, once considered a toss-up, now pretty much considered a red state.
Right.
Indiana, 30, a red state. North Carolina, still purple, but basically more red. 32, Tennessee. 33, North Dakota. 34, Georgia. 35, South Dakota. 36, Florida. 37, Wyoming. 38, Texas. 39, South Carolina. 40, Arkansas. Now let's look at the bottom 10. 41, Alabama. 42, Alaska. 43, West Virginia. 44, Idaho. 45, New Mexico. 46, Mississippi. 47, Arizona. 48, Louisiana. 49, Nevada. And 50, Oklahoma. Now, there's some outside factors. A lot of those states have large percentages of students who do not speak English. And, of course, that would take your scores down, right, Brian? We know that. Right. But the idea is you have these two ideas where over here, we're banning abortion, and those states don't rank very high on the education. So, Brian, to support what you're saying, I think you will see. First, there'll be people coming to other states to do certain things. We look at the most recent thing, and I'd love to, I wouldn't believe Ron DeSantis if he told me, but I'd love to know the truth of that. He took on Disney. I don't think Ron DeSantis is that dumb. I really don't. That he didn't realize that in there was a rider that says, yes, they can take away Disney's, the special government they have, but the state of Florida must pay them $1 billion in order for them to remove it. Now, already they were starting to calculate the taxes for Orlando. I think he knew that. I think what he wanted to do was get the appearance of standing up, but not have to go through the idea of being pilloried for losing or costing the state $1 billion. And that's where people don't look into it deeply enough. Mr. DeSantis, as I've said before, and I will continue to say, to me is far more of a danger tonight than Donald Trump, for a couple reasons. Donald Trump is Donald Trump, erratic, but certainly not what should I say? Not really powerful. He doesn't even know how to use his power. Okay. Yes, he wanted to he wanted to nuke the drug dealers in Mexico. That came out. He wanted to shoot protesters in the leg. I mean, silly things that can be stopped. DeSantis, much more crafty, and will go about it. And it sounds like he already has a couple of these issues with the Supreme Court behind him. So I'm still going to look the next couple of weeks to see, is there a way that the United States can dissolve itself and form others, whether it's secession by state, I don't know. I think we're going to come to that.
I don't even think that they're contemplating it. I don't even think that's something maybe you and Brian might be thinking about, but they're not really thinking about it. Texas may have been thinking about it, but now they're getting their ways. So.
Oh, no, I meant. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was me not making myself clear. I'm talking about New Jersey seceding. I'm talking about because, how do you? I'm not idealistic, but how do you let, when it comes to a point where you agree with nothing, right? That the powers that be, and I agree with nothing that the Republicans have done since 2016. There's not one thing I agree with. At what point, when Trump was, I just, oh, he's not my president. Well, that's a joke because he was. And technically he was. Now I just did it because people say, so you're president. I say, never was my president, etc. But that's true. So at what point do you begin to say, I guess first step would be, if you feel you're disenfranchised in a state, is to move to a state where you don't feel so disenfranchised. But if what I said tonight is the Supreme Court is going to look at these other things, and and I don't think that they are going to change. The Supreme Court is not going to change. You're going to have to, in order to change the Supreme Court, you're going to have to change the format. Something that I like, it's out there. People can look at it. There's a proposal. It's just sitting there. Judges, there's a couple. One I like is a Supreme Court judge serves for a term no longer than 18 years. I think that's a pretty fair kind of thing. That gives you enough time to get acclimated. There is a thing to be said, although I don't
Republicans aren't going to agree to that now. You can forget that in the Senate.
Well, I know that. I understand that.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Is there a way, is there some way, because I don't know the law that well. I know what I read, the Constitution. I know what I think is there, and I know what's not there. And the one that I just keep coming back to, and I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm just saying I don't understand how any legal mind can see a sentence that begins, a well-regulated militia, and think that says that people can do open carry in public. That's just, those words just don't go together.
Well, apparently, government officials can do that and still be a government official.
Well, that's it. And I don't know, Ronnie, it'll be interesting to see. Now, I haven't been, obviously during COVID, we didn't go anywhere, right? People didn't go anywhere. But I have been to a couple states prior to COVID where it is open carry. Mm-hmm. And I was raised around guns, all my life, not since I've been an adult. But I was raised around, and they were there. And I saw, the first time I saw the equivalent of the gas station where you go in to get a Coke, kind of thing, that kind of thing, in Nevada with the clerk having a gun and the guy buying his beer having a gun. I said, I don't think I'd shop here regularly. I just don't. I wonder, as we begin to see these things that exist in these red states but haven't been here, as they begin to become more and more and more prevalent. Again, I don't know where it stands now. DeSantis has proposed a complete open carry with no training in Florida. So
where does he even get off saying something that's stupid?
Well, and of course, when I do work with Sarah Lerner, who's a Florida educator who survived Mary Stone Douglas, and we do. Just think, here's a state, and again, I'm sure of one statistic. I'm not on the other, but I'm close. 17 teachers or students were killed, murdered, in the course of going to school on a regular day. It's the largest number killed of any school shooting in America. It's Florida, and 43 predominantly and maybe all gay men and women gunned down at the Pulse nightclub. And in this state, you're going to say that it's okay. I mean, it's not okay anywhere. Now, maybe it'll be a good thing. The Villages down there, which is the fourth largest community, I think, in behind Miami and Lauderdale. It's just huge. It's just sprawling. They had to get some good go-tos, although basically they're more Republican Democrat. Maybe they can, we'll just have gunfights on their wheelchairs, and I don't know where the hell is this going to end. And so, I remember when we started this show, I was the one more optimistic than Brian.
Right. When he says, ladies and gentlemen, when he says starter, we're talking about the very beginning of Divided We Stand, not tonight.
Oh, not tonight. No, I'm talking about right. Because I honestly, you have some feelings, and you can do what Republicans do, stay with them in the face of evidence that disproves it. I was of the belief that people could discuss their differences. That is not what can be done anymore. It cannot. I was of the belief that compromise sometimes could be possible because each side would get something. That can't be done. I was of the belief that if a senator took a snowball into the Senate and held it up to prove that there was not climate change going on, that people would laugh him out. That is not the case. People believe, or at least the Republican Party believes what it wants to believe. And as I said before, I'm looking, if I suddenly decide that your name, Brian, is Joe, and Ronnie, your name is Jezebel, and so you're Joe and Jezebel, and I believe that, or I maintain that, there's no way to go because your name's not that. And that's what we have Republicans doing. They're looking at facts, not seeing them. They're hiding, they're lying, they're hypocritical. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. And they believe it. And Brian, I know you and I've disagreed on that. I think sometimes, I don't give them any credit. I just think they believe it. Like we look at, you can't believe that. They do. They believe this stuff. They do. And there's no way.
I think, again, I've been told, I speak with a couple individuals from Russia, one who is a liberal. She said that she believes that the Russians who take this propaganda use it as a defense mechanism. And perhaps that's really has to be applied to us. That maybe it's a defense. There's more psychology in it than we would think. It's maybe not just stupidity. Maybe it is an actual defense mechanism where they default to because they can't accept. It's kind of like the death in the family. They can't accept it or something.
I think there's also something too that I've been following.
Thank you, Karen.
And thanks, Karen. There's something I've been following. I just point out for others to follow. The idea of even in victory. Now, would both of you agree that if indeed what is carried through in Alito's is done, that is a victory for them, right? I mean, there's no other thing you could do. Oh, Anthony, sleep's overrated. Stay and watch the show. But the other thing is, my mic actually works tonight, Anthony.
The tempo's a lot quicker tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Correct?
No. What happens, Brian, is this too. Listen, so that's a victory.
Welcome to the auction.
And how did they celebrate? By playing the victim. What did they do? They said, "Oh, this secret report was stolen." Why did they put up the fencing? Oh, they're trapped now as victims. They do that so well for people who believe they are victims. How can any white male anywhere in America go to bed tonight and think somehow the cards are stacked at birth against him? How can that happen? Because they've been fed this kind of thing. Now, it's not to say that sometimes when we do make change, we go a little bit too far. But you have to look at where the pendulum was. It was way over here for some of these things. Take the Me Too movement. Now, I think, I don't know if you've been following. I try to follow celebrity stories, but Bill Murray's back in the news. They stopped filming because he did something inappropriate. And his comment is not any defense, but it probably is true. He said, "I'm learning things that I could do when I was younger. Apparently, I can't do now." Duh. Bill, you're learning that now. And the one that was almost hilarious to me, and I don't know Fred Savage at all, but I still think of him as in the Wonder Years. He got shut down today.
No.
Yes, for inappropriateness. Now, here in Loudoun County, which is 3 counties over for us, has been the trial of Virginia since the Loving. It's the biggest case since the Loving case, which was the interracial case that resolved that black and whites could marry. And that would be something that I think is very important, right? Who was more abusive, Johnny Depp or Amber? And who shit on the bed? Was it a dog poop or did Amber shit on the bed? And people are lining up to go watch that, lining up. And yet, government, every day, they do these things with nobody there. So, do you blame? Sure. I mean, people want diversions. Does that mean we're like the gladiators and the circuses of Rome? I think there's a point to be said for that. But Brian, we'll get back, and we never asked Ronnie this. So Ronnie's very, very intelligent. We've done this a couple of times, Ronnie, but you got three or four books. So I'm just going to choose 4 tonight. You've got Fahrenheit 451, right? The book burning thing. You've got Handmaid's Tale, which is theocracy against women. You've got Brave New World, which is amusing yourself to death. And you've got 1984, which is basically authoritarian fascism. Which do you think is closer to the truth today in America? I mean, they're all evidence, but if you had to pick one that is the closest, what would you pick?
Geez.
I know.
The first one that comes to my mind, the first one that I think is not The Handmaids. Well, what was the last one you said again? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'll run it till we get for you. 451, which is basically banning
right.
government. And then you've got
Handmaid's Tale.
A Brave New World, which is Soma
Right.
and amusing yourself to death. And then you've got 1984, which is authoritarian fascism.
Well, I think fascism is definitely more prevalent than anything right now. I think that's what they're working toward.
I agree. But what's funny is
it's all part of fascism.
If you looked at each of those books, I mean, they did touch on, certainly book burning is fascism, certainly Handmaid's Tale. But it's like you said, you know how they didn't really have, and they did, you're absolutely right. They didn't really have a lot of racial animosity in Handmaid's Tale. Because it was distilled down. I mean, it's fiction, so they can do whatever they want. But it's almost like in all those books that we've read over these years warning us, it was like there was one problem. And we're facing all of them.
Right.
And that doesn't even, I didn't even throw in one where we're going to destroy the climate. And Brian, let's get back to your subject a little bit that we come into, because they are related. Anything new that you're worried about tonight? Ukraine, Russia, that you maybe weren't worried about? Or is there anything tonight?
Well, my worry is, because the last 2 days in the news, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that, we have a lot of intelligence being given to the Ukrainian army. And, of course, they took out the Moskva, which is the flagship of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. And I'm afraid that Putin will use that as propaganda to get the people angry and stirred up. These very people who are stupid, the Trumpers over there.
The Trumpers of Russia.
Right, and say, look, this is what the Americans did. And then they'll announce they lost 300 sailors on the ship. And if it wasn't for Biden and the American military, this would not have happened. And that's where things can get really, really nasty. Maybe he does some, devilish cyber attack, or maybe he goes as far as saying, you know what, we're going to hit Latvia or Lithuania. I think they'll take the weaker ones first, and I think that's what he'll do. So that worries me, and anything like that gets us closer and closer to nuclear war. And if you look at on the internet, on YouTube, for anything from William Perry, who was the secretary of, I guess he dealt with the nuclear issues, Secretary of Defense under Clinton or Obama? I don't know. You'll have to check it out. But he said, he was always worried about nuclear war, and he said we're too lax about that because we've never used it.
See, I thought it was, and again, interesting is such a blah word, but when I don't know why, I think I might have covered up the fact that we shared a lot. That if you read some of the articles, that Ukraine could not have sunk that ship without our help and knowledge, which, indirectly we know they're sending weapons and all this, but it's almost like we took.
What was the question? The real question is We know that we gave them intelligence. They may have given them coordinates, but as Biden said, or as the Pentagon said, I should
Right.
clarify that. He said we give them the intelligence. What they do with that specifically, we don't specifically tell them how to target each general or each ship, but we give them the background.
You think Putin's going to address it that way? No.
Thank you, T-Bone. It was under Clinton with William Perry, right?
Okay.
And I think he's still alive, actually.
But but the idea of it. So, Ronnie, I want to bring it back to you because, first of all, we need it desperately tonight. Maybe the audience hasn't seen, but Brian and I are white guys, so we're certainly not women. Okay, and again, I think we can express our outrage, but
I really am a white guy. I've just never told you.
Well, I think Brian, that would make sense for Brian. I'm surprised but I don't think you are, Ronnie. I've known you too long. So it's a tough question, but I'm going to ask you, which scares you more tonight? Because they're both scary issues. The Russia-Ukraine, or what it appears the Supreme Court is poised to do, and all that could come after that. Which one is more frightening to you tonight? Just you personally, you're not speaking for anybody other than you.
Well, it's funny because the whole time I was thinking about
or some other issue.
Well, no, I was thinking about life and the pro-life people, using life is precious, statements. And yet all I've been thinking about are innocent people being bombed, over there on the other continent, where it doesn't seem to be affecting our way of life very much. I know that I had trouble sleeping or working or just living a life that I'm living here. I felt all that guilt when this all started. But yet we still had to carry on here as if it really wasn't happening. And I think that's what frightens me more. And also the fact that we're moving in that direction here, that, Ukraine just wanted to be a free society. We want our freedoms. We feel that they're being taken away. I don't see it as an either or. I feel like it's a domino effect. I feel like what's happening there, I just feel like it's all one big cluster F. Okay. And so for me to make that choice, I just can't, because I see things are connected. I see things that I see that everything is connected. And, of course I'm going to be more affected by what's going on here, but I was very affected about what was going on there. And yet here I am scheduling hair appointments for ladies.
Well,
it was like surreal. It was surreal to me.
Well, I think it was, what am I looking for here? I put you in that position not to see what you would say, but I think it is all related, right? I mean, the problem becomes what another thing that concerns me is now the Supreme Court, or Alito, did not do what he did to take our eye off of the Ukraine. It just happened that way. But there's so much going on right now that maybe things do get forgotten, or we do. And Ronnie, I mean, you do have to pay the bills, okay? I mean, that's something. But because you are whom you are, and I know you well, you have tremendous amounts of empathy for almost all living creatures, but especially, I mean, I just always think, the kids, and that's, or not that I shouldn't think of older people. I mean, and they're living a life that we can't even begin to imagine. But you put it into some perspective there, that I think we have to be somewhat concerned that we're headed in that direction. The other thing that struck me that you said, and it has nothing to do with, you're saying it, you're right. You're saying, and I believe this, that we have our freedoms being taken away. I think you're right. What's interesting, that's the same argument the other side uses. Well, if their freedoms are being taken away and ours, we should join together, right? Or one side is wrong. And I'm sorry, conservatives, I haven't seen you lose any freedoms yet. Mm-hmm. You've lost. You think your vote didn't count? It did count. There just weren't enough of them. Nothing was taken.
No, they lost the past. That's what they lost.
Well,
This
that's
romantic, nostalgic idea of America.
and you're right, Brian, but that's not a freedom.
No, I understand that,
And I know
but
you're
see,
not saying
they're
it. I know.
confusing nostalgia with freedom.
Correct. And my thing is, I've always said, is that I've said this and will continue to
Oh,
say it to
geez, that was
anyone
way too
who
loud.
has a MAGA hat on or
Oy.
whatever. Make America great again.
Test.
That word or that phrase says that it was once great. You can't make something great again that wasn't great if that's what your phrase is.
Well, who was it great for? It was great.
That's my challenge. That's my challenge to them. Who was it great for? And there's only one answer.
Right, white men.
White men, but you could even add to that white men with some economic means, right? Even though that's a gradation. So what you're saying is make America great again? You're saying make it like it was in 19. You picked a date, right? Maybe the 50s, maybe the 40s, but certainly not in the 21st century. And Brian, you put on something, and this is something that the enemy, and they are the enemy. They are terrified of change. Change happens. They are terrified of the other. The world is becoming more the other. I mentioned earlier about the idea of the Constitution was written with a very homogeneous group, right? And we didn't even quite get that right, but we were able to make some compromises. And now we have a very large group. The other thing is that I this is just my belief, and it doesn't have anything to do with anybody else's. It's mine. I don't like laws that say you can't do something like abortion, but that's what is even worse is you must do something, right? And they have both kinds of laws. Like you must put up with people carrying guns, but if your life, if you feel, your life is being threatened or you've been raped, you can't relieve that. And I'm not sure, and I'm going to do something I should never do, but I'm going to. It's one of the southern states, and I want to say Alabama, but I could be wrong. They're working on a law that if you are indeed raped, of course you must have the child. But here's the other thing, that if you have an abortion, the family of the rapist can sue you
Right.
for depriving them of a family member. Think about that.
Right.
So it's insane. Maybe next week, ladies and gentlemen, Brian and Ronnie can continue this discussion as they do. Maybe the two of them can come up with an idea.
T-Bone will appear next week. I think
great.
So
I would love that.
Really
I mean,
nice.
we'd like to have more people on because it's fun, Brian. But the other thing that runs out of it is, I mean, not that we want to fight or not. I mean, we only have our ideas. You really get challenged. It was just like it was great tonight to have Ronnie. First of all, just Ronnie, anybody. But then it was great because you have a female perspective, which we lack. I mean, I know sometimes you put on a dress, but it's just not the same, Brian. That's having a real life female here. And if other people come on, because I look at their comments and there's some really good comments. Now, maybe
Absolutely.
for whatever
and
reason.
you don't get they're wonderful comments, but sometimes you don't get the full feel of it unless they're live. I mean, that's why it's nice.
Well, I mean, that's
to get people in.
And see, and I don't know, and this is just my thing. I'm not real sure. I'm still a person that believes in live. I mean, I know that's kind of passé now, and I understand that, but I like a live conversation more than I do a text or whatever. So I definitely am of that belief.
Yes.
But then I don't watch a lot of YouTube. I'm not saying because I don't have time. I mean, I do other things, but I know there's a lot out there. But I still think it comes down to people talking. And not right now, what I think is so important, ladies and gentlemen, is this. We're not talking to change minds. We're talking for support because we're huddled now. We're at war.
Listen, I wanted to, I know some people did want to see this, some people didn't want to see this, but I thought we'd show the Handmaid's Tale trailer to those people who haven't seen it. And I'm going to, ahead of time, thank everybody for showing up. I will put a video on. I did something in Russian that I'll put on to lead us out, but that's neither here nor there. But we are going to watch the Handmaid's Tale trailer for season 1, and we'll see.
And Ronnie, thanks for being here, and thanks for everybody who tuned in.
Thanks.
And next week I'll wear my red hood for Handmaid's Tale.
Okay, here we go.
I was asleep before. That's how we let it happen.
No good.
Now,
Can you hear it?
now, what it is, Ronnie, I know you live with him, but this is the way he hears things.
Can you
That's
hear
why
it?
when he doesn't answer you, it's the way he hears things.
I have to let you go. Go on.
Nah,
Can't
it's all
hear it?
garbled, bro. Nah.
It's all chopped up, Brian.
Son of a bitch. All right. I think we'll leave it for next time, and I'll just take us
Now,
off.
can I say one thing before we go on that? If you were a Republican, if you were, and you're not, that proves you're not. You know what you would have said? Liberals sabotaged that
Yeah.
Yeah.
to make yourself the victim, rather than just saying, which I will say for you, you are completely incompetent and can't do things. But you admit that.
At moments, I am incompetent.
We all have to, Brian.
Okay, well, I gotta get my old ass up because it's hurting.
All right. There we go. So, see you all next week.
Good night.
All right. And I'll show you some stuff. Hopefully, this will work. This is me, but it's some Russian rap thing for the subway
Oh,
system.
Lord.
Here we go.
Я долечу до брата лучше на метро. Ехать из станции увидеть меня, бро. Цены на такси это какой-то беспредел. Я лечу в вагоне, хорошо есть БКЛ. Я долечу до брата лучше на метро. Ехать из станции увидеть меня, бро. Цены на такси это какой-то беспредел. Я лечу в вагоне, хорошо есть БКЛ. Сколько тут чек-чек, каждая как чек-чек. Взглядами врезаюсь в них, я просто без причин чек. Девочки тут понимают, время не висит. Лучше перебраться на метро, чем на такси. Я туда-обратно замучу до ужина. Без проблем в инете так и все прогружено. Линии смешались, словно розу и ветров. Я приеду быстро, я летаю на метро. Я долечу до брата лучше на метро. Ехать из станции увидеть меня, бро. Цены на такси это какой-то беспредел. Я лечу в вагоне, хорошо есть БКЛ. Я долечу до брата лучше на метро. Ехать из станции увидеть меня, бро. Цены на такси это какой-то беспредел. Я лечу в вагоне, хорошо есть БКЛ.